Hello, hello. I can't hear you. I don't know if you're. Hello. Hey, Carl. Are you here? Can you? Hey, Omar. Hey, Omar. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can. There you go. I can't see you, but I can hear you.
You cannot start your video because the host is you disabled my video thing.
I did.
Yeah, it said I can't do it because the host has disabled it.
Whoa. Let me see. What happened? Hold on, I'm gonna exit out of it and hold on. There you go.
Damn. Cool. It sound good.
Sounds great, man. How are you?
Pretty good. I got a studio for my podcast, so
You what?
I found a studio for my podcast. So I just need to get the logistics in terms of the business wise in terms of getting that together.
Hey, hey, what's up, Carl? How are you? Carl, can you hear us? Carl, can you hear us?
Yes.
All right, cool. Check on your word. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you turn yourself up just a little bit?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. It says the video won't start because the host stopped it.
Can you?
Okay.
There you go. There you go. How are you, man?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
I'm doing well. We decided to open up tonight to everyone. Oh man, I love your intentionality. Follow Carl. You got this, dude. I like you already, man. I love your intentionality. Yeah. Make sure. Follow Carl, right? Got you.
Rob,
Yeah.
where your beard go? I'm not gonna play with you.
You know, God is not pleased with your spirit right now. Out of order, it's out of line, it's rebellious.
No, you out of line.
I shaved.
Okay, okay. That was quick. That was quick.
It only take a pair of clippers, man of God. Only a pair.
I'm weak.
Oh man.
So is the link for this, if it's open, is this on the flyer now?
No, this is not on the flyer. We can actually share it if we want. You guys can actually share this link too if you want. People can't join in until unless they can't do video themselves unless I invite them to. So we actually, if you want to, you can share this.
Okay.
Somebody else just enter in. I just heard a beep.
Yeah, I'm not. It says, I don't know what that
This
was.
is why we get 30 minutes early because never know. I almost burnt our whole house down just a few minutes ago.
Mighty God.
So,
What were you doing?
huh?
What were you doing?
My wife, so it was my fault. I cooked Sunday or Saturday, well, not Sunday. I forgot what day. I made meatloaf for my father-in-law, and I don't ever make meatloaf because I don't like it. And so I cooked, but I didn't know that a lot of the grease had dropped in the bottom of the oven. So my wife turns on the oven.
Oh
All
God.
this grease is at the bottom of the oven burning.
Jesus. Grease fire.
So matter of fact, I'm going to put this link. Did you guys see the event I created? I
Yeah,
put you
just
guys there as co-host so you can invite people to it.
okay. It starts in like 15 minutes, right?
Yeah. Um, I put the actual meeting link in there too. So
Mm. Let me see.
my whole house smells like smoke right now. I didn't have a chance to put up my little banners or nothing. So man, Carl, how are you, man?
I'm doing good, man. Tired all the time, but good.
Sergio's on here. Okay, I see you, Sergio Ortiz. So the reason why it's asking, I have to promote you guys to co-host because it's actually recording.
Okay.
So the way I have it set up, in order for you guys to be co-hosts, it's almost like you have to agree to be the co-host so that it can actually record it.
Got you.
So I think Michael's trying again. He just emailed me. So, Sergio, can you make sure we can hear you, bro? Did he mute himself? He must have muted himself because. So everyone, Michael's still trying to get in, I think. see. Yeah, just look for the weird looking number. Michael's in Oregon. What kind of headphones do these take? Did you take the regular headphones? They don't take the regular.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, bro.
All right, awesome.
So, uh, I'm trying to understand why he's having trouble. So, as we were waiting for everyone, else to join in, can you guys just introduce yourselves really quick and tell it and yeah, I think Michael.
My name's Omar Marshall. Robert is not my brother, but we are family. I'm from Chicago, but I live in Indianapolis. Working on a podcast called Root of Choices about mental health, self-care, and all that good stuff. I'm 24 as well.
So, my name is Carl. I am 31 from Columbus, Ohio. Is that all you're wanting?
Tell us. Oh, you're an author. Tell us about your book. Like,
I'm an author of a book called Touched, and it was our little secret, which is about my journey with sexual abuse, the path to healing, all that stuff. I'm currently serving as an executive pastor at Hope City House of Prayer, and do all kinds of things along the lines of, like my brother Omar just said, mental health, emotional wellness, et cetera, et cetera.
So, okay, go ahead. Who else is next?
Is there anyone else?
Yeah, Andre is actually. I think he just got in.
All right. Well, I can introduce myself.
Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, fellas. My name is Sergio Ortiz. 34 years old, born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. Serving my local church as a pastor and over evangelism and outreach. Also, I'm an intervention and prevention specialist for at-risk youth.
Andre, you're sideways, brother.
We'll fix that. How's that?
There we go. That's better.
Is that better?
That's better.
All right.
Carl, you good? All right, cool. We're introducing ourselves really quick. Did you want to introduce yourself, Andre?
Sure. Hello. I am Andre Campbell. I am a pastor at New Creation Family Church located in Shreveport, Louisiana. Just love God. Glad to be here.
All right. So I want to kind of give you guys, and I know we're waiting on, I think, I forgot his name. Lord have mercy. And Michael, I'm sorry. We're waiting on Michael, but just to kind of give you an update, I've kind of talked to each of you one-on-one, just to kind of give you a rundown of what to expect. So tonight is more, it's not necessarily a Christian podcast or a Christian webinar. It's I see one attendee, and that's probably why I cannot see who it is. This is gonna aggravate me. So it's a webinar It says one attendee, but I can't see who it is, and it's probably Michael. This is why we need at 8 o'clock, guys. So because between 8 o'clock and time for it to start, there's a slew of just different things that
Get
pop
all
up.
the little glitches out the way.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. So let me send this. Michael. Okay. We'll send that to him. Okay, cool. There he is. All right. So there is. All right, there we go. So I think we finally in it to win it. So we got one last crazy second. That's just to go live. But Michael's on here as well. Michael, can you hear us? Hello? I don't know if he can. There we go. Michael, I see you. All right, can you hear us? Oh, 1 second. We still can't hear you. Okay, so just kind of give you guys a rundown before we start. I've given you guys a list of questions kind of as the conversation is going to transpire. Tonight is more of, like I've explained, more locker room talk. So it's not necessarily I'm be honest, it's not church. It's not we're not trying to preach, we're not trying to do any of that. And this is what I don't want to happen. I want everyone to stay true to their story, but what we're looking for is your journey, your process to wholeness. And we know for many of us, Jesus is a part of that. And for some, Jesus may not have been a part of it. But we want to capture the true rawness and the essence of your life, your experience. And I think we can do that in a way without preaching. It's conversation, it's talk. I want this to be as if you're in the locker room talking with your boys, talking with your guys about your life. And to be honest, in those private conversations, most of the time we're not preaching. Most of the time, that's where we're relaxed. That's where we're talking about what we're processing through, what we're dealing with, what our general levels of understanding. And so that's the vibe that I want. We have a unique group of guys here with us today. You guys all have amazing stories, amazing experiences, and I want to capture those, and I want people to hear your stories. I want people to hear the rawness of your story. So sometimes what we like to do is Christianize it, and a lot of times that people can't identify. Who are still in the process. You never know who's trying to seek to understand. So I sent those questions kind of as a guiding format for conversation. I want us to be able to speak and go, like, don't be ashamed to talk about Jesus, but at the same time, it's a full, robust conversation. So speak like you want. Say what's on your mind, say what's on your heart, say what's on your chest. If you was pissed off, you're still working through it, you're still processing, that's fine. We want people to feel the rawness of this existence, because our stories are not heard. Our stories, it's not popular to tell our stories. It's not popular to kind of speak publicly as men, on this subject in general, and even amongst some women groups, to hear a man say, this was a part of my story. Sometimes that's contradictive by itself. So it's going to be amazing. I think it's going to be dope. I think guys are going to be honored, and I think men are going to be reached and lives are going to be changed. And the purpose of this tonight is to invite men to join us on their journey to wholeness. That's the purpose. That's the main purpose, to raise awareness and invite men to join us on the journey of wholeness. I have a quote or saying that I say all the time. I say healing is the journey, wholeness is the destination. So that's kind of how the vibe I want, and I'm feeling. So Mike, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. Can you hear me now?
Oh, I can't hear you, Michael. Eric, can you introduce
Perfect.
yourself? Michael, I'm actually a big fan of Michael's. I'm honored to have all of you all here, but everybody introduce themselves. Michael, really quick, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so Michael Anthony, I grew up in the Midwest, Indianapolis. I currently live in Portland, Oregon. I'm an author and international speaker. I host workshops, and mainly I work with adult survivors of child abuse. I've taken everything that I've learned and understood about abuse from the science and mindset aspect of it, applied those things to my life over a really intensive journey. And now I'm an advocate for helping people create change in their own lives.
Thank you, Michael. So Michael has a book out. I love his book. Big fan of his. Andre's working on a book
Thank you.
right now.
Nice.
Carl has a book out called Touched, Our Little Secret, right?
Yeah.
Touched, Our Little Secret. As far as Sergio, he's doing some work as well. So I'm excited about where you guys are on your journey. I am so thankful that you guys have chosen to be present. If you don't mind, can we just take a moment of silence and just kind of and this is why I feel this. This is personal. This is very personal. I've done webinars before, but I feel like it's personal, and I think this is sacred too. I think it's a sacred moment for a lot of us. For some of us, Sergio, is that you too trying to get in through another way?
No.
Okay, I saw somebody else jump on. All right, so I'm excited. Let's take a moment. I'm about to go live now. You guys, I'll be asking questions. Not necessarily in order, but it's a discussion. It's a conversation. All right. So just take a moment. Just think, pray, meditate, whatever you want to do, to get your thoughts together. And I'll start the live process. All right. So I'm about to connect. All right. I think we are. All right. I think we're live. All right. What's up, guys? How you doing this evening?
Hello, hello.
Hey, what's happening?
And so good.
Good. I'm so excited to have you on tonight. This is exciting. This is dope. We're here, and I'm so excited. We got some amazing brothers from all walks of life joining us for this. I haven't seen this done before. And so I'm just excited to have you guys here. You're bold, you're brave, you're brilliant, and I'm excited to hear from you. I want to take a moment and want you to introduce yourselves, tell us who you are, where you're from, what you do, and yeah, we'll start there. Let's go from the way I'm looking at it. We'll start from Sergio, then we'll go to Andre. Sergio. Then we'll go to Carl and Michael and Andre, then Omar. All right.
All right. Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Sergio Ortiz, born, raised, and currently living in the inner city of Chicago. Ordained and licensed pastor and intervention and prevention youth specialist of 12 years, and currently serving in the west side of Chicago, city of David Church. And I'm excited and honored to be on here tonight and be able to share and hear the many stories that will be shared tonight.
All right. Thanks, man. What's up, Carl? Talk to me.
Hey, what's going on, man? My name is Carl Wright. I am the executive pastor at Hope City House of Prayer here in Columbus, Ohio. I'm 31 years old and am the author of a book called Touched, which is about my journey with sexual molestation, journey to healing, and kind of it centers more so on the long-term effects of sexual trauma. And I just am excited to be here. So thank you for having me.
Man, I'm glad that you're here, man. What's up, bro? Come on. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, so hey guys, I'm Michael. I'm originally from Indianapolis, so another Midwest guy. Currently live in Portland, Oregon, though I've traveled the entire world and back again. I am an author and international speaker. I work directly with adult survivors of child abuse. I have my own sexual history that happened kind of in the church, which I imagine we might talk about a little bit this evening. But I recently released a book called Think Unbroken, which is about the mindset and science of overcoming and understanding childhood trauma.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Andre, where you at, man?
Hello, everyone. My name is Andre Campbell. I am an underpastor in Shreveport, Louisiana, New Creation Family Church. Originally, though, I am from the great Midwest as well, born and raised in Michigan City, Indiana, right around the lake from Chicago.
Y'all all from the Midwest. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yes, sir. And so been in ministry for over 30 years, currently singles pastor, my wife and I. And I have my own experience that we're going to talk a little bit about tonight regarding molestation as a child. I'm excited to be here. This is a great thing. Let's get it going.
All right. And last but not least, where you at, Omar?
What's up? My name is Omar Marshall. Me and Robert are not related, but that's my brother for real. I'm from Chicago. I moved to Indianapolis, been out for maybe 3 years now. 24. I'm working on a podcast called Root Choices, which is focusing on mental health, self-care, and the well-being of anybody that's listening. So, yeah.
Oh, awesome. Well, once again, everyone, I'm so grateful that you decided to join us tonight. Hey, this is the first time that we've actually opened these live webinars to the general public. And the only reason why we did that is because I wanted to honor these men because their stories deserve to be heard. Their experiences deserve to be told. And I think there's so many people, especially men, who are living and suffering in silence. I want to create a space and a platform for men to help men begin their journey to wholeness. I'm excited that you guys are here. Michael, and I want to kind of jump right in. Michael, now in your book, you start talking about the long-term effects of sexual trauma or sexual violence as it relates to children. What are some of the long-lasting effects that men kind of deal with or that men go through as they mature into manhood?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't think what I wrote about wasn't necessarily just about sexual abuse or molestation as a child. It's certainly a factor. A big portion of what I shared was the research study and the Adverse Childhood Experiences Survey done by Dr. Folletti and Kaiser Permanente in the CDC in the mid-90s. And basically what they found was a correlation between these series of questions and the ramifications of health as an adult. And the biggest things that they found were, depending on how you answered yes to these questions, there's 10 of them. Were you ever molested? Were you ever abused? Did you ever feel unsafe? Was anyone in your family ever deal with mental health issues or a suicide attempt? Did anyone in your family go to jail or prison? Did you go through a divorce? And there's a couple more questions. And if you answer yes to one of these questions, there's an 83% chance that you'll answer yes to 2 or more. If you answer yes to 2 or more, there's actually like a 40% chance that you'll answer yes to 4 or more. I answered yes to all 10 of these questions, so I am the champion. And what I found was in my mid-late 20s, I started getting really sick. And I'd been dealing with a lot of emotional issues. I was dissociated. I had tremendous anger problems. And, growing up in school, everyone just kind of tells you, just deal with it, put some dirt on it, stop crying, whatever. And then I found out that actually was destroying my life. So by my mid-20s, I was a workaholic. I was obese. I was smoking 2 packs a day. I was high from the moment I woke up in the morning to the moment I went to bed. And I was like, why? Why is this happening to me? What the hell is going on? And I came across this study just randomly. And I was like, oh, there's a correlation here. People who have had these adverse experiences, upwards of 4,000% more likely to commit suicide, 5,200% more likely to have a pulmonary embolism, 2,200% more likely to use alcohol or tobacco. And I was like, oh, that makes sense, because if you had a normal, sustained, healthy youth, like, you probably won't be seeking these other things to stay from living in the present moment. And so I think that there's like the physical ramifications that kind of expound and show themselves as you grow and you get older. And that can happen younger too, because I had asthma, I wet the bed, I had learning disabilities, I was always fighting. And by the time I was an adult, it was kind of just this parlay of chaos that was happening around me. Plus I started getting sick and not being able to figure out why I'm going to the doctor 47 times in 1 year. So there is so much correlation between the things that happen to us when we are young and when we are an adult.
Good, man. Well, man, thank you for kind of your work that you've done in that. I wanna jump into this. I like to start these webinars with one general question for all of you all. One of the things as a male survivor of sexual trauma, I've had to work and process through what it means to be a man. And so I like to start these podcasts, these webinars off by asking you guys, what does it mean to be a man to you? I think when you go into different settings, you hear different definitions. So I'm all about, helping men redefine their narrative. So what does your journey to manhood look like, and how do you define it? Can we start with you, Carl?
Yeah, so, man, the topic of manhood is such an interesting thing for me. I have never ascribed to like the stereotypical kind of traditional things that people ascribe to men. I don't like any sports. I don't know anything about them. I'm not interested in learning about them, and I'm completely okay with that. I was raised by a single mom. I knew my dad, but just had a really rocky relationship. And to this day, it's still a little rocky. So I didn't really have male influences. The only male influences that I did have was the man who molested me, and then other people who subjected other forms of abuse. So there was never really like a good example or a grid for what men look like. And the examples that I did have, I didn't want anything to do with that. So it wasn't until later in life, and I don't want to like make it sound churchy or anything, but after developing my relationship with the Lord and trying to work things out, that I came to some solid conclusions. And for me, I think that what it means to be a man is what it means to be a man is identities, to know who you are, whose you are. So to know God, to know yourself, and to know yourself well, I think is the essence of a man, is to be stable. If you choose to have a family, I think as a man, you should provide for your family, care for your family, protect your family. I don't ascribe to the belief that men have to provide for their family in the sense that your wife cannot make more money than you. I'm married to a doctor. My wife makes plenty more money than I do. I'm completely content with that because I could still care for us should she, yeah, like could she, yeah. So should she decide, you know, that she doesn't want to work, I could still very much provide for her. It may not be at the level of living that she would want right now, but as a man, no matter how you find yourself, you should be able to care for your family. So for me, though, the journey to manhood has been rough. It's been really, really difficult. Like, I've never felt comfortable around other men. I've always had trust issues when it comes to men. And I felt that men in general, just, you know, you can't trust them. They always want something from you. They lie, you know, a million other things. Even tonight when you were talking about like just having a discussion like you were in the locker room, I have no idea what that is, what that would be. Locker rooms have always made me very uncomfortable. So it was a couple years ago, a friend of mine was getting married and they had like all the men come over to like pray over him, encourage him, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember looking up in that moment, surrounded with men. It was just, all of us were just men. And I was thinking like, wow, this is so crazy, because last year this would have made me really, really anxious. But I think just, you know, doing the work of the soul and really trying to work through your own healing, at some point in the journey, you just kind of arrive to a place that you weren't before. And you recognize like, okay, I'm coming into my manhood, which is a confidence in who I am and whose I am, no matter other people's opinions of that, if that makes sense. Like I'm no longer, there's this like, I don't know what they call it, like machismo or something like that, like this macho kind of, where men kind of like compare to one another to try to prove their manhood. And I've never,
that's what I like to call it.
Yeah. And I've never really like felt the need to do that or to be that. But I think when the feeling of being inadequate, so not the feeling of comparison, but the feeling of being inadequate, like for instance, for me, anytime like I would have an issue with my car or whatever it is, immediately that feeling of like, you're not a man would kind of like overwhelm me, you know, you don't have what it takes, you'll never be. But I think the moment that was alleviated and it didn't provoke me, I wasn't triggered anymore. I think I finally realized that I've come to a place of settling in my manhood, if that makes sense.
Good, man. That's good. Thank you, man. So Sergio, what is that? What does manhood mean to you? What does it mean to be a man?
For me, it kind of was knowing what it was to be a man, but really hard when followed by that shadow of just brokenness, you know, knowing what you have to do, but then that child inside of you wanting to be nurtured, wanting attention, wanting love, but at the same time feeling totally broken. So not feeling worthy of doing what you know you're supposed to do. So unlike the brother that just talked right now, I lean more towards the sports. You know, I was a top baseball player in the top 25 baseball player in the state of Illinois, top in football. And so by doing those things, I felt like, okay, this is gonna make me tough. This is gonna make me rough. This is what's gonna make me a man. Then of course in my adult years, I've learned, you know, a lot of this journey is in this walk called life. We're gonna discover. We're not gonna have it together. We're not gonna go into something already having it. And so I learned to be okay with discovering the attributes and the characteristics that suited me and that I felt were strengths that I can apply to my life and that I can not only share but give out. And when I became okay with discovering and taking those steps of faith in those different areas of my life, then it was then that everything began to just gel together. I began to develop the man and discover the man that I was strong at being, that I was vulnerable, but still free with becoming. And so that's been my journey, just discovering a lot as I go, and knowing where I'm strong at and where I'm not strong at, and being free and okay with that.
Okay, man, dopeness. Thank you. Man, Andre, you've been quiet on here, brother.
Yeah, I mean, so far, great feedback from everyone. What the gentleman just said, who spoke before me, really resonated with me. At 53, age 53, I realized that the journey to manhood means different things at different times.
Yes.
And what a man looks like to me now at 53 is much different than it looked at age 23 or 33 or 43. Because as you grow, you begin to understand the importance of taking responsibility and being accountable for your actions. There was a time where I wouldn't even cry. I remember years ago when I attended my grandmother's funeral, I didn't cry. I tried to make myself cry and I couldn't cry. I had internalized pain for years and I became hard. And now at age 53, at a totally different stage in life, man, if the wind blow too hard, I might break out and boo-hoo, you know what I'm saying? So it's different at every stage, I believe, that the journey brings about discovery. And in that moment and during that season, we kind of recognize what it means for us to be a man at that time. So my view now, I'm looking at life through different lenses at age 53. And there seems to have been more seasoning, more maturity. Being a man means a lot. I look at it a lot differently than I did back in the day. I used to think back in the day, being a man, man, I was the toughest. I was the strongest. I had the most women. You know, that's what being a man was back in the day. Now, being a man for me means being a husband to one wife, taking care of my wife and my family, doing the right thing, even when no one is looking. And so for me, that's what it is. But it's changing. It's still changing, and it's a beautiful journey.
Okay, thank you for that, man. Omar, where you at?
What's up? I think my definition of manhood, and I've kind of toyed with this kind of question for a while, as long as I could remember. And I've come to the conclusion that being honest, not only with who you are around, but with yourself when no one is around, is a crucial part in discovering that, hey, you're not that bad. You're actually worth more than you give yourself value to. And discovering that, hey, I actually, have more power than I thought I possessed. You know what I'm saying? That they didn't take that much from me. I just feared the worst. And I just stayed in there, and I became comfortable and became habitual and became a habit and a trait. And that's how cycles continue. You know what I'm saying? And so understanding that being a man has everything to do with your transparency and your honesty and your accountability makes sense to me still.
Yeah, thank you. Michael, where are you at on your journey? What does this mean?
Yeah, guys, first off, thank you. I'm honored by everything that you guys just said, because I see me in everything. You know, I grew up without a father. My stepfather was hyper abusive. I was inundated into the narrative of the hood, and growing up running around with my homeboys, breaking in houses, stealing cars, chasing girls. You know, I played sports, which, 20 years ago, you could be a really good football player, or wrestler, and baseball player. No one cared if you were failing in school. And, I chased women, and I thought the idea of being a man was this thing where it's like, okay, all the girls, all the clothes, all the cars, all the money. And I chased that hard, and I got it too. And the problem with that is sometimes you get exactly what you wish for. But I'd been growing up in this way where I had no male influence outside of violence in my life. So Carl, dude, much like you, I 100% relate to this idea of being in a room full of men and being insanely uncomfortable. And Andre, I understand what it's like to be like, man, I got to be the manliest man in the room and alpha male status. And Sergio, you said something really beautiful about this idea that you kind of just start to discover it. And Omar, you're so right about honesty, man. Like, honesty to me is my number one value in life, period. Because if you can't look at yourself in the mirror, then you can't be out in the world being a human being. And, you know, I grew up not being able to cry. And if I did, that was like, I was beaten to the point where you're not allowed to cry. And so now I'm in my manhood, right? My, whatever we define manhood as, and I'm lost. I'm like, what is actually going on? Who am I? What the fuck is life? I don't understand any of this. Everyone wants me to be a man and man up, but I'm only going, like, my life is like a Jay-Z song, like legit, because I don't know anything else. And in my journey, the most important thing that I've discovered and the most important thing that's changed my life is coming to this place where it's like, I have got to be accountable for every single thing that I do. The way I treat my friends, my family, my community, my partners, my homies, everybody. And the number one most important thing that I have to do is be accountable to myself. And so I changed this mindset. And to me, manhood, I may never have a definition that I feel comfortable with, because I still don't necessarily always feel comfortable as a man. Even 6'4", 220 pounds, like, I still don't ever necessarily feel that. But what I do feel is a calling to be great for myself. And to me, that's bigger than anything. That's manhood. And I think that's humanhood, for lack of a better term. Like, it is about, like, just being and being okay with that.
Man, that's good. That's beautiful. I think, and I would have to chime in. For some of the other webinars, I was not the expert or the person, but I think with my experience, the sexual violence for me happened, you know, starting at the age of 4 with family members. So from 4 to 21, kind of being immersed in that. And I think for me, I went the other direction, right? For male survivors of sexual trauma, you have one or two extremes. Normally, you either, I'm going to sleep or be as sexually active with as many women as possible to prove how much that I'm not gay, or I'm not bisexual, or I'm not this, trying to live beyond the experience that you've had, or you go the other direction. And for me, it was the other direction. And so I grew up questioning my sexuality, being really involved in, I had boyfriends. I also was very sexually active. I grew up, all of us in here, for the most part, have had some experience with church. And so for me, I grew up preaching grew up in a super hyper spiritual environment. But a lot of the people who were preaching, a lot of people who were teaching, were people that I was sleeping with at the time, or who were sleeping with me. And I realized, and I remember, and because we are men, this is a locker room, and we're specifically talking about violence. I remember sometimes I had one abuser who was didn't know that he was married, had children, but was also a pastor at the time. I remember after he would meet me or take me to like this park at night. It would be pitch black. I lived in the country, so nobody would be there at this park at like 9 o'clock in the evening. So he would take me there and would have sex with me at the park. And I'm literally, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade. And because he was a mentor, a big brother, that's kind of how that clearance happened. For those who asking how in the world did that happen, and would have sex with me at the park. And then after he was finished, he would look at me and be like, "You like that? You like this?" And then he would say stuff like, "Something's wrong with you. You need help." After he got his pleasure. And I remember there was another instance with the same guy. I was a part of a purity program, believe it or not, in middle school. and he would pick me up from the purity program. And I remember he had this red truck, and he would take me down to like a bay area where there was a whole bunch of boats, and would have sex with me in his red truck, his pickup truck, after I left the purity program. And so for me, that created this kind of web of spirituality, sensuality, and sexuality at the same time. And because I did not have any friends, because I wasn't popular, in my head, I said, well, the only way, I internalized the only way that I could have male friends or be a man or please a man was to please him sexually. And so that became my mantra. The only way that men would like for me to be around was to be able to please them sexually. And that created this toxic cycle and mental space in my head where where it almost became a game for me. It was like, I could get you, I could turn you out, or and it kind of went this other direction. And so any male relationship that I had, for the most part, I would be in my head, I'll be sizing them up, being like, hey, I can get you, I can sleep with you. And now being at this age, now looking back, I realized I was hurting, I was broken, and I was looking for somebody to love me, somebody to want me, wanting to be wanted. And for me, that was always for what I could do for a man in order to gain that love. And so it's for a long time, and the reason why I like to ask that question is because I didn't realize I was a man until I was about 23. I remember having this big epiphany because I knew I was a male, right? I knew that. But like many of you, I couldn't be in a room full of men. I was uncomfortable. It was just like I would get anxious. I would get anxiety. I would have so much anxiety. And so I'm realizing that not until I got older that part of one of the major issues that I had growing up, I never really identified as a man because that part of me was snatched. I didn't have a healthy working definition. And so for me, a manhood is all of what you guys have defined. I think, and which is powerful. I want to kind of I want to ask you guys, what are some things that you've learned through your experience that you wish someone would have told you on your journey to finding yourself, on your journey to wholeness? What are some of the hard things that you've had to process through? What that you've had to process through? I know for me, it was feeling, and I know my mom might see this, but I know for me, it was feeling like I was abandoned, like nobody cared, like where the hell was everybody? I was seen, but wasn't seen, heard, but wasn't heard. So, Carl, I want you to kind of jump in here, bro.
Okay, so can you repeat the question?
So what are some, on your journey to wholeness, because you've obviously written a book, what are some of the hard things you've had to walk through? What are some of the unpretty parts? Because, and this, I'll say it like this. I talked about our journey to wholeness, but in reality, healing and wholeness is not a pretty picture. So it's not this Zen experience. What are some of the ugly things that you've had to walk through? Some of the struggles you've had to process through to get where you are now?
So many, I think.
Be honest.
So like you, I was sexually molested for a number of years by my stepfather, and it started at the age of 8, lasted until I was about 14, multiple times. And then I believe Mike mentioned this, but it's the possibility of re-victimization is extremely high for people who've been victimized. And so I was re-victimized a number of times. I was raped at 16, raped again at 22. And just a whole plethora of things that have happened. But I think some of the more difficult things were belonging. And I don't know, I mean, I'm sure that's very much attached to my ability to belong to myself. One of my favorite people, Dr. Tama, has a podcast, I think it's called Homecoming, and she talks about the necessity of coming home to yourself. And so I think that has been a major struggle. Like I mentioned earlier, relationships with men were and are, I will say, I think I'm farther along with it than I've ever been, but it's still a very difficult thing. Relationships with men were very hard. I kind of wish, because, I got saved when I was 16 in the apostolic faith, and I'm a white guy, but I've always been in Black church. It's all I've ever known. And so, counseling was not something at the time that was popular. And now, counseling therapy is very, very much promoted, which is awesome. But at the time, we were always told, like, Jesus is your counselor. You don't need no counselor. Crazy people go to counseling, But I did start counseling a few years ago, started therapy, and it's probably been one of the best things I've ever done in my life. So I wish that I could have accepted that sooner. And lastly, I think I'll say, I wish I had known sooner that so many things in my adult life were attached to the fact that I was victimized as a child. I didn't realize how many things were connected. And so many things just felt like, man, you suck at life. You're a failure and everything you touch crumbles. And I didn't realize that these are outgrowths of long-term trauma or long-term, undealt with things. And so when I realized that my behavior in school, my ability to pay attention, my relationships with men, like I spent years sleeping with same sex. I can't even count. It's been so many people that I've slept with, trying to find myself, I guess, or find acceptance, because the only time I felt really accepted by a man was when I was pleasuring a man. And so I just wish that I knew that. I wish I knew sooner that so many of those things were a direct result, a fruit of the evil tree, if you will.
Man. Dude. Come on, y'all can chip in now. We in it. We're in it now. Andre, I'm interested to know what are some of that. What does this process look like for you?
For me, one of the things that I've learned, and it's been a very difficult lesson to learn, is that I don't have to hide. I don't have to internalize my feelings. It's okay to talk about my pain. Being a victim of sexual trauma as a child, 8, 9 years old, that taught me how to keep secrets. Okay. And I didn't realize it until a couple of years back, very recently, that secret keeping was embedded in me. The things that I either wouldn't share because I didn't want people to know, or I just chose not to share things because I learned from my sexual trauma that you keep this a secret. You're not going to expose what's really going on with you. And I tell you, Robert, that manifests in so many different ways. Internalizing that type of pain, I became an alcoholic. I looked at women as objects for pleasure rather than being the creation, the beautiful creation that God designed. My whole view, my whole perspective was tainted. And it became okay for me to hurt people because my emotions were turned off, because all of my pain was internalized. So that was a real hard lesson for me to learn, that it's okay not to hide. And I tell you, it took me many, many years to come out of hiding. Okay.
I got to ask you this, because you're speaking some good stuff. So we often hear the term coming out when we're talking about LGBTQ community. But it sounds like you, as a married man with children yourself, had to come out.
Well,
And I say that to say this. In your whatever you're about to say, because I know it's going to be profound. There's some brother that's here, that's listening, that's watching, who is married, has children, and has never said a word.
wow.
I need you, y'all.
Yes.
This thing is so real. I'm trying not to break out in tears, yo. I'm trying.
Yeah.
There's some man who has children, grandchildren, who's never said a word. There's some man who's trying his best to keep it all together, and he feels like he's about to lose his shit. Speak to him, man? Please.
Let me tell you something. Whoever you are out there, if you're listening, you can't keep it in. You got to talk about it. You got to expose it. You have to free yourself. Those chains that bind through keeping these secrets and hiding, man, they can be absolutely devastating. It took me a broken marriage, a divorce, my relationship with my children. I held this inside. It wasn't until later on, way later on in life, that I came to a place in my relationship with the Lord that I was able to actually talk about it. I'm 53. It took me till I was about 48. And I didn't even realize the damage, the impact that these events had on my entire life, my decision-making, who I hung out with, my view of homosexuals, my view on sexuality, period. And all of it was impacted and it affected me, but I didn't realize the deep measure of how it was so impactful. And when I experienced freedom after coming to that realization and came out of hiding, it was life-changing. Life-changing. I didn't even know what true freedom was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really beautiful, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the place where I am now, they say hindsight is 20/20, right? And looking back now, wow, what a journey. But I think to myself, wasted time. Why? Because I hid. I was afraid to speak on it because perhaps something was wrong with me, or I did something wrong, or I was damaging everybody around me, but couldn't understand why. Ready to give up, ready to throw in the towel, ready to kill myself, X me out, because I keep feeling pain and I keep causing pain, all because I kept it. Man, talk about it. Get it out. Yeah.
Good.
Wow.
That's good.
Omar, man, I know you just started your process to wholeness. So Omar, what does this look like for you?
That's good.
So yeah, I'm 24. I've been on this wholeness journey since like about 9 months ago, since May, like continuously, like really hardcore in my own feeling, in my own crib, making sure I'm, living with myself first, not allowing people into my space that I do not permit, creating boundaries and standards that I did not necessarily have before. And did I know I could set for myself. I was molested at 9 and it continued on till maybe 13, 14. And it was a period where we just weren't in the same space. He had moved away. And I just thought it was over, but then I realized that it catapulted me into a depression that I had then, I have anxiety now. Like public speaking is I love to public speak. I love to talk. I love to be able to minister to people or talk to people about whatever it is. But I have this shakingness, you know what I mean? Not that I'm scared, you know what I'm saying? This is the tension, you know what I'm saying, that I've been holding back for so long. But yeah, so I was going through depression, and but my dad and my mom didn't know, and they were pushing me to do things that were just like wearing on my soul. Like I couldn't fully commit to anything and everything that they had me going to. My dad made me play every sport except for football, only because I have a PV shunt, which prevents me from actually doing that sport, hand-to-hand contact. So I just never really got into sports, really. I can't tell you much about it now, other than the Colts are one of my dad's favorite teams, you know what I'm saying? And so experienced anxiety and depression, and then having a broken home, my parents divorcing, my idea of what love was no more. It was like, okay, now I need to really find out what is love, what is being a man, because I have no clue. My first intimate moment with someone who supposed to love you back just as much as you love them wasn't in the right environment, wasn't in a safe place, wasn't done, you know, intentionally. You know what I'm saying? It was pain there. So, and I've learned early on that my abuser actually, you know, apologized early on, so I didn't really hold on to it as much as I did, as much as I thought I did. And I found out that, he only molested me because he was molested, and that's all he knew to do. You know what I'm saying? And I was a product of what he thought was right. You know what I'm saying? And so from like 12, I was thinking like, okay, so I don't want to fall into that line of, you know, hurting people to hurt people on purpose. You know what I'm saying? But if I hurt people on accident, they probably deserved it, type of thing. You know what I'm saying? Because I had to have deserved being molested, because why would that happen? You know, I have a good mother, I have a good father, I have a good upbringing, good background, grew up in church. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't a bad kid. I didn't grow up just being destructive and toxic. But everything I fought was internal. So picking at my skin was a really big habit that I was doing. I wouldn't take care of my hygiene. Brushing my teeth was a chore, a real big chore. You know, doing my hair was a huge chore. You know, exercising, I was really big. I did not understand the validity of you know, what it is that I had to go through. So
Self-love, self-care.
exactly. Yeah. So 9 months ago, is like I had questioned everything. I questioned God. I questioned my family. I questioned, you know, me, because I didn't understand, because something had to change, and all the changes that were happening were never good, or were never good enough for me. And so I had to make a self-conscious choice to be like, hey, I want to be happy. What does my happy look like outside of the people that I associate myself with? You know what I'm saying? And what does that feel like when no one else is around, and I have to do it by myself, and I have to do it by myself? You know what I'm saying? Like really, really, really dissecting who I was, and having to make some hard truths, like, hey, you are attracted to both sex. That does not mean you're gay. That just means you love people. That means it's easy for you to love people. You know what I'm saying? Instead of looking at them sexually, look at them as a human being. Look at them as another person that sees the world the same way you do. You just have a different mind in the game. You know what I'm saying?
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm interested to know, Michael, why in your work, what are the effects of hiding? How does this play out? Why, you know, we got the how or the why, but how does this affect people? How's this journey look for you?
Yeah. If I could just take everything Andre said and just say it again, because he's so spot on, man. It's darkness. Being in this place where it is don't ask, don't tell isn't exclusive to the military. It is very much a lifestyle, depending on where you grow up and how you grow up. You know, as a biracial kid growing up in the hood, like, boys, first off, you don't cry, you don't talk about it. I mentioned that a minute ago, but especially like if something like sexual abuse has happened to you, I could not dare say something like that to another human being. Are you kidding me? That's insane. Which in turn, coupled with untold pieces of violence, ends up bringing you to this place where you have no valid idea of who you are. You cannot in any way say, this is who I am, put a stake in the ground. And that's not only in like just kind of defining yourself in a sentence or in a career or in a role, but it is in the way that you take care of yourself. It is in your self-talk. It is in the way that you present yourself to the world. You ultimately become what it is that other people viewed you as. And that is something that is just thrown away to the side, that is abused, that is stolen, that is taken from, that is broken. And so you end up in these places where, you know, at 26 years old, I was 350 pounds. I was smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. I was drinking all the time. I was cheating on my girlfriends. Yeah, girlfriends who didn't know about each other. And, and I put a gun in my mouth because I just couldn't handle it anymore. And for whatever reason, I pulled that trigger on my 26th birthday, and the firing pin did not strike the casing. And somehow I am still here. What happens is you get to this place where all of the things have just created this vortex, and I call it the vortex. And it is this place where it's all dark. It is this place where there is no light. It is this place where you cannot see a possible way out. And I would love for one of you guys to tell me I'm absolutely wrong. Please, you would be the first people out of hundreds I've talked to. But I don't believe that change can actually happen in your life until you have a total fucking breakdown. You have got to hit rock bottom, because that is the only place in which you're ever going to go, oh shit, it can't get any more dark than it is right now, so I've got to fucking make a change. And that's the thing that I wish someone would have told me is, okay, you're heading on this path and it's going to get really dark and there's going to be some really bad stuff that happens, because you need to talk about the stuff that happened to you. You need to take care of yourself. You need to change your mindset. Just for anyone listening right now, like, no joke, go read a book called Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach and start there, because the way that we talk to ourselves is more important than anything else. And here's the craziest part about that. If any of you guys said the shit that I used to say to me, I would punch you in the face. And yet I was walking around all day long saying the worst possible things about myself. That's the thing I wish somebody would have told me. Like, growing up and having my self-esteem and my validation ripped from me in childhood was something that I had to go and get back. You have got to earn it, and it's hard and it's dark, and it is this path that you're on that is a constant battle every single day. I saw this movie. It's called Any Given Sunday, and if you're a sports guy, you know it. If you're not, watch it anyway. There's a scene where the wide receiver, who is Bill Bellamy, I can't think of the character's name, but Bill Bellamy's his real name, they're getting ready to play this game, and Bill is looking at himself in the mirror, and he says to himself, I am the greatest wide receiver of all time. And I had this moment watching that film, which years and years and years later would come to fruition, where I was like, oh, I've never said anything like that to myself. Fast forward a long time later,
wow,
everything in my journey changed after this breakdown, where I just looked at my life. I was like, I don't know what else I do from this point. And I walked in the bathroom one morning after getting completely trashed the night before. I'm putting on a size 47 pants and 4XL shirt, which I had been obese twice in my life. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I was just like, no more. Like, this is it. And much like Andre, it was this moment where that became like maybe the second time I had cried in 15 years. Wow. And it is a journey, and it is so hard, but I believe inherently it all starts with the way that we talk to ourselves.
You just dropped the mic. You just dropped the whole mic. Like, oh my God. You said so many things. I'm trying to get to Sergio, man. So you said
this is good. This is good.
You said one thing that I want to kind of ask you how to do. You said you have to go back and get you said, what was it, your childhood? You said you have to go back and get your self-esteem. You have to go back and get your identity back. Man, what does that look like? Because I'm ready now. I know this is not Christian, but I'm going to use that. I'm just letting you know now, and I will give you credit for it. But
take it. I don't want credit.
We have to go back and get our stuff.
Dude, look, here's the thing, man. Look, I'm gonna give it to you real. No one gives a shit about what happened to you. I'm sorry. Like, that is just the reality of it, man. Look, there's 7.3 billion people on planet Earth, and bad stuff happens to people. The only person that you should care, if they care about you, is you. Start there, and that will in turn, by proxy and exponential properties, create a community of people who also care about you. But it starts with you, and you have to look. Here's the reality, this plain and simple. The Michael sitting here talking to you guys right now is a Michael that I created from scratch. I said to myself, what is it that I'm willing to do to be great? Because I growing up, I always had these moments where I was like, I feel greatness. There's something I'm destined to do. But the terror, literal terror of stepping into that kept me from doing it. Because all I ever heard was, you're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're dumb. You're stupid. You're not capable. You're never going to be shit. So imagine that for decades being buried into your brain. And then one day you go, okay, I'm going to flip the switch. So how do you do that, Robert? Very simply, one step at a time. Every single day, go in the mirror, look at yourself in the damn eyes, and tell yourself that you are capable of doing great things. Because if you can't convince yourself, it's never going to happen. And so as I sit here now, I'm a different person than I was 7 years ago, because I made an effort to push myself through the darkness. And it's hard and it's dirty, and I'm still doing it every single day. It'll never stop. But every day you can do little things. What are you eating? How are you thinking about yourself? Are you journaling? Are you like getting off your desk? Are you watching cartoons all day? Are you taking care of the people in your life? Are you, look, here's the reality, like, no bullshit. Every single person knows the things that they're supposed to be doing, but they don't do them because they're hard, and nothing great comes from staying comfortable.
Well, all right, Sergio. So what has this process, what does this journey look like for you, brother?
Man, you guys share some good stuff there. For me, okay, thought I lost you there. Yeah, for me it was from the age of 5, having one male and 2 female abusers. The thing I had to fight with the most growing up with the trauma was really my brain stretching and my faith stretching. Literally every day it being on my mind, every day me asking myself, how am I going to get past that hurdle? But just seems like I was getting nowhere. And so what caused them 5 minutes affected me for a lifetime. And it wasn't until, like, I think it was you, Robert, the age of 21, 22, I was in Germany at the time for 2 years, from 06 to 08. And it was just this still voice that just kept saying, don't let your past hold your future hostage. Don't let your past hold your future hostage. There were some doors opening for me that were giving me the opportunity to be great, but there still was a lot of stunt and stall in my spirituality, my emotions, my mental state, that were stopping me from really flowing and really blossoming. So it was at 21, 22 where I shared my story, where how the pastor was just sharing, I opened up my mouth. I talked. It was a group of people. It was a group of about 20 people that were there that I was sharing my story for the very first time. And my mother was translating for me. And this is my mother's very first time hearing this. And so I'm like, okay, oh Lord. So I remember just being completely free. Completely free. To the point where my mother that night knocked on my door, asked to talk to me. And she asked if I would share the names, if I would share who. And I said, you know what, Mom? Today was not only my breakthrough, but it was my break free. And that fire that was in my heart that wasn't letting me have peace, that fire that was burning my conscience, that was creating high levels of crazy anxiety, I was set free from. And from that point on, I was determined to never let my past hold my future hostage. And it was the moment that I decided to speak up.
That's powerful. There's so many emotions that happen inside of men. Like there's this major misconception that women are these complex beings and that men are like these one knob kind of have this one knob internal thing. And that's the farthest from the truth. As we hear you guys talking, I just want to first pause and acknowledge you guys are amazing. Like you guys are simply, you guys have said so many things. Even if we stop right now, you guys have said so many things that are life changing. So as we go back, as Andre mentioned, as we realize that we don't have to hold these secrets, as we realize that we have to go back and get our identity and get our stuff back, get our things back. And as we realize there's a true opportunity for freedom and for healing and for wholeness, how do we empower, how do we instruct, how do we nurture the everyday man who is going about his life, trying to live his life, but has been living in silence, and they've been shut down by shame and shut down by guilt? I know for a long time, I blamed me. I blamed me for what happened to me. I was walking around as if I was the person. And like I said, I've had multiple abusers, and I didn't realize until about early 20s that, wait a minute, these were adults. I was a kid. This is not on me. This is on them. So how do we enable and empower men to break shame, or break free from shame and guilt? And anybody who wants to take a swing at that, feel free.
I think that one of the most important things that we have to remember is that, like, taking off that mask is one of the hardest things that we will ever do. And in order to do that, you have to come to this place where you have to be willing to decide that it is worth the level of uncomfortable that you are about to experience, because on the other side is the potential for something great. There's no promise that it's going to be there, but I don't know about you guys. I would love to hear your opinions. The first time I at least started sharing the high level stuff, man, it was just like this brick was lifted off my chest. It was like somehow this freedom, this experience that I'd never had came to light. But it was so scary to just, what I did was I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm just going to press the button and it's just going to happen. And I'm willing to take whatever comes on the other side. And I think that's a great place to begin, is just go, you know what? Like, it's relation, it's community. You share that stuff and you're going to find out really fast that you're not alone.
That's good. Carl, what does it look like?
So a few things I would say is, I feel, let me see where to start. Okay, so you mentioned about feelings, and you're talking about how men. So I think the best way to teach or to empower is to become, and by your example, by you becoming whole, free, genuine, authentic, it liberates another brother to do the same. And I think what Mike said is, am I allowed to call you Mike? Is that okay?
Michael, please.
Michael, okay. Well, I think
Yeah,
what Michael
no worries.
said is so important. Like, at the end of the day, nobody should care for you more than you care for yourself. And I think, as a pastor, as a Christian, I would share, like, we hear the scripture all the time: love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. But I think we really miss that: love your neighbor as you love yourself. It's completely impossible to love someone if you don't love yourself. And so that journey of becoming, of breaking that stuff, is long. It's hard. Like Michael said, it's one of the hardest things that you'll ever do in your life, is to take the mask off and be liberated. I think one of the most powerful things that I've heard about it, you guys know the movie The Shack. Before The Shack was a movie, it was a book, and I watched an interview with the man who wrote it, and he talked about how of abuse, et cetera, that he kind of put those faces on God, and that he basically, like, was terrified of anybody getting close enough to discover who he might really be, because he didn't know himself, right? So I would say feeling is not female, feeling is human. And y'all ever seen that movie Inside Out? I know it's like a kid's movie, but there's a movie called Inside Out. It's probably one of the most powerful movies you'll ever watch. And it basically talks about how you can't escape a feeling. Like, if you try to remove a feeling, then it kind of breaks down the whole system, and you won't be able to enjoy the fullness of what feelings are for. So when God created us in his image, he made us as beings who feel, and we feel intensely. We feel all kinds of plethora of emotions. And I think with a lot of men, especially men who've experienced abuse, what we find is an expression where they'll say, like Andre said, like he couldn't cry. It's an expression of numbness, but numbness is not a feeling. Numbness is literally the inability to feel. And so I think we as men, like what we're doing right now, what we do in our everyday lives, what all of you are endeavoring to do by telling your story, by doing the work, is empowering. I think we really have to change our language. We have to change the way we interact as men. And we have to really start, like, when you come into your manhood, when you come into your authenticity, you kind of have to, like, demand that from other people. Like, not allow people to make you feel weird for feeling or feel other for feeling, and be able to express that. And so lastly, I'll say, I think something that we have to know, for all of you out there who maybe have experienced some form of abuse and are starting your journey of sharing your stories, I would say it's important for you to know that telling your story, just that, like coming to the place where you're able to share what happened to you, is a massive, massive step. And I don't know if you guys experience this, but when I told my story, like Michael said, a huge weight. I mean, a huge weight lifted off me, right? And it felt amazing for a few weeks. And then suddenly it was like, oh crap, but I still have all these issues. Like, I thought sharing my story would fix it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like, when you share your story, you got to understand, it's like Michael said, on the other side of it, you have no idea what's on the other side of it. But there's actually a lot of work. And I think we have to commit to doing the work for the long haul. But it is a big step to even get to the place where you're able to share the story. But it's like, man, you will never make a better decision in your entire life, because though I was terrified to share, terrified to talk, even the subtitle of my book, Our Little Secret, came because my abuser would abuse me and then say, this has to stay between you and me. You don't want your mom to go to jail. You don't want, X, Y, Z to happen. And I was terrified that if I shared, that something bad would happen to the people around me. And I was conditioned by a million other situations and scenarios to care more about what happened to the people around me than to myself. And so for years was conditioned to not care about yourself, right? And so when I finally came to this conclusion, like, okay, I don't really know what's going to happen. Some people are going to get pissed off. Someone might get mad. What if it creates arguments? What if people go to jail? I had to just say, look, I'm sick of being how I am, and I don't care what happens to anybody. I've got to care about myself, so I choose me. And so this is my story, and I'll just, whatever happens, happens. We'll figure it out as we go.
Wow. Thank you, man.
Yeah,
Thank you for that.
absolutely.
I know we're getting in the hour. Man, Omar, I love you, man. Really quick, Andre, what's on your man? What you got to say, brother? Well,
One thing.
there you
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No,
There's one thing that we all have in common. We all have a testimony, okay? And that testimony can be a tool of impact. Now, it takes a lot of courage to tell your story. But once you come to the place where you have the courage to tell your story, you discover that you're tenacious, that you have grit, that you have substance, that you have worth, that you have value. Then that testimony becomes a tool that can empower others that have similar stories that may not be at the place yet to be able to speak out. So it's really important that distracted because my daughter's trying to get in the room. Welcome to the world of 4-year-olds. But I think that is very, very important. I mean, Robert, this is empowerment. There are listening ears out there, and we can't be afraid or ashamed to tell our stories once we get to that point where we have the courage to do so. One other small nugget that I want to drop that was very, very empowering for me. I had to forgive. It took me a long time to do that, but I had to forgive. And I thought I had forgiven. I was preaching around the country, doing different things, and still was dealing with high levels of unforgiveness. I actually was preaching and plotting the demise of my abuser at the same time. Okay. But I had to come to the point to where I truly and genuinely forgave. When I did that, then I experienced my breakthrough. So now I'm able to make declarations. I'm able to speak. I'm able to share my testimony that it could hopefully empower others.
That's good. Man, I'm stunned. Last thing, we're gonna go. I want to say thank you all for joining. Michael, I'm interested to know what are some of the some people call them declarations, but what are some of the mantras that you tell yourself every morning or every day as you pursue this journey to wholeness and thinking unbroken?
That's a really good question, but I'm not going to tell you. And here's why. Because it's sacred to me. That's where my power comes from. And we all have to figure out what that is for us. Because I think about it like this. If I just give you the answer, but it doesn't fit, are you ever going to step into what that could be? Mm-hmm. And so I challenge you to figure that out for yourself, because the biggest thing that you can do is look inward and find out what your own power is.
That's good.
I can't stand y'all, man. I can't.
Can I say,
Yeah.
to Michael's point, I think, and you said it earlier, Michael, I don't remember the exact words, but I think one of the most important aspects of this journey is regaining your personal power, like taking your personal power back. And it is, and I know that's really, really hard, especially for those of us who come from maybe a church world or a charismatic world, where self is not encouraged in a sense, but it's all throughout Scripture. Regaining your personal power, take your personal power back, even if that is morning declarations, whatever it can be in your self-care plan to help you, whatever it takes to help you regain that personal power. And I would even say, to Andre's point about forgiveness, I think forgiveness is a massively important thing, but I also think that sometimes our view of forgiveness through the Christian lens can sometimes be forced and not necessarily be true to your process or your journey. And so I would say that it's important, even with forgiveness, that you allow yourself the opportunity to arrive at a place of forgiveness, as opposed to forcing yourself to, so that you feel like you'll be forgiven. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
I got you. I'm flowing with. I'm rocking with you. I think it's good, and just to piggyback off that, I've had multiple abusers, and I've had the privilege of going back to a lot of them to say and ask them, why did you do this? And a lot of the time, most of them had said, well, this happened to me too.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't justify them. And I teach a workshop, and I talk about, especially with men, we oftentimes, we villainize, we grow up watching superheroes, Marvel fans, whatnot. And so we have this concept in our head, good guy versus bad guy. And we automatically villainize the person that abused us. And it makes forgiveness a little bit more palatable when you realize that the person that hurt you were probably hurting themselves and no one was there to help them. And when you look and you dethrone them from this place of power at the end almost of every movie, when the villain is defeated, you realize that there's somebody who's been misunderstood, misinterpreted, hurting, broken, and they're seeking revenge, they're seeking whatever. And this is not to justify the abuse or justify what happened, but for this, forgiveness has nothing to do with the other person. It has to do with you. And it has to do with you taking your power back, dethroning them, and realizing that they don't have that power over you any longer. And I said that to say, I think I have to be honest, and thank you guys for giving us permission to talk freely. I think I've forgiven a lot of people, but I think there's still some people I need to forgive. And because I had one person in particular who just acted like it didn't happen, or act like it was, it was a figment of my imagination. But it's a journey, and that's what I want to stress to you who may be listening today. This is a journey. It is not an overnight quick fix. I wish, and I'll have to go on my church rant for a minute. I wish somebody could lay hands on me, spin around, throw some oil, and I'd be over it. That is bull. It is baloney. This is, you have to process through. You have to walk through. You have to be committed to it. And I don't want to harp on church, but there's something in common. There's this thread that a lot of us have in common, and a lot of our abuse has come through some form of church spirituality, those type of backgrounds. And I think there's some people, and I'll speak to this. I think there's some people who may be listening who may be upset with God because somebody broke and hurt you. And I want, and I'll speak on this, and I'm not here to preach, but I want you to know that that's not God's fault. Men have been given free will to do what they will, and it's not God's fault. Matter of fact, God's heart breaks over the fact that you were broken. God's heart breaks over the fact that you were hurt. He says that I know the plans that I have in store for you, and they're not to harm you, but to give you a hope and to give you a future. The person that hurt you was not a test by God. This was somebody who was sick and was in rebellion, and who was hurting and who was broken. And so I want to let you know that even us doing this post, I believe this is a divine moment for you to allow your journey to wholeness to begin. Now, whether you're a Christian or not, whatever that journey looks like for you, just start the journey. Because, like as Michael so eloquently said, nobody cares about what you've experienced, but you have to care for yourself. It has to start with you. Love yourself enough to begin to become more in love with who you are supposed to be and who you were created to be versus being the person that people try to create you to become. You're not a victim. You're a survivor. You're here. You're still alive. You're breathing. It's never too late to start now. So once again, I want to thank you guys. It's past the hour, and I'm sorry that we kept y'all longer, but it was getting good. Really quick, can you guys tell us about your products that you guys have out? I'm working on a book right now called See Me. It's supposed to be out in March. Y'all, yeah, keep me in your thoughts. That'll be out. Tell us, Carl, where we can get your book, where we can get Touched.
Touch is available, I believe, everywhere books are sold. So it's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. You can go to carldwright.com and get it there. And I believe it's also in an ebook form somewhere as well.
Okay. Michael, man, you have so much going on. How can we follow you? How can we keep you in our ears? Where can we get your products? Where can we see you, hear you, all that jazz?
Yeah, definitely. And quickly, I just want to say, guys, thank you all so much for giving us the space for this. You all had some very beautiful and poignant things to say that I think carry a lot of weight. And there's a lot of voices with a lot of faces that people will hear and relate to. So just from my heart, thank you guys. I see you.
Wow.
You can find literally everything I do at thinkunbroken.com. I'm on social at Michael Unbroken, the Michael Unbroken podcast. And I will be, the book, Think Unbroken, Understanding and Overcoming Childhood Trauma, is Amazon, Kindle, everywhere. So you can find it. And again, just thank you guys. You're amazing.
Thank you. Anybody else? Serge, where can we find you at, brother?
Right now on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook. Also, I'm in the beginning stages of writing a book as well, Beyond the Glory. So keep me in thoughts and prayers for that. Also want to thank each of the fellas, man, for being brave to stand out and to speak up, and to you, brother, for just creating this platform, man, for us to be able to enable and empower those men that are out there going through what we have gone through. So thank you very much.
Man, thank you. Andre, you have a book. You have a book coming out. You're working on one, or is it finished?
Working on a couple of things right now. I can be found on Facebook primarily. My wife and I are working on a book that'll be coming up hopefully later this year. That's entitled "Divorce is Not an Option." Also, I have a personal testimony, a book that's entitled "The Power of the Blood," that talks about my journey in dealing with molestation as a child. So those things are up and coming. We're also working on some music. Got some great things coming in 2020, 2021. So if you're ever in the Shreveport area, holler at your boy.
Omar, tell us about your pod. Listen, I love all of y'all. I have to give Omar props. He's just beginning his journey. And man, I want to say I'm very proud of you. And you're brave, you're strong. And tell us about your podcast you're working on.
Yeah, so you follow me on Facebook at Omar Shakir. Follow me on Instagram at I am Omar Shakir. I'm going to be pushing this podcast called Rooted Choices, which is, my own testimony, my own personal experience, and how I got to the place of self-reflection and being mentally healthy, being emotionally healthy, being spiritually healthy, and understanding that I have more power than everybody alluded to. And so I will say that a lot of what I go by now is doing what I need to do before I do what I want to do. And I say that so everybody can, go by that, because when you really take care of your needs, those boundaries are set, and you are able to then move into the world a lot easier, because you're not so focused on everybody doing you wrong and being owed something. You know what I'm saying? So the Rooted Choices podcast is a lot about mental health, self-care, giving good tips about being healthy, not only spiritually, but, physically healthy and eating right, and what that looks like, and all that good stuff. So be on the lookout for that. Follow me on my pages. So, yeah.
Thank you. once again, thank you. I want to highlight a lot of you guys are working on stuff, but I want to highlight two that are already ready. You can go grab them today. Carl Wright has his book, Touched, Our Little Secret. You can get it on Amazon. Michael has a slew of products available. You can go to thinkunbroken.com, right?
Yep.
Thinkunbroken.com, and you can get Michael's books, his products, and follow him. Once again, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. I look forward to collaborating with you guys.
Thanks, man. Thank all you guys. You're all amazing.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, y'all be blessed.
Matt, Michael, can you, Michael, thank you. Michael and Carl, can you guys stay on for 2 seconds, if you don't mind?
Sure, man. No problem.
Thank you so much, Sergio. I really appreciate it. You've been amazing, bro. Andre, thank you so much as well, man.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Man, you're amazing. You're amazing. Man. All right.
All right.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Hello? Yeah, man. You I think you guys I think everybody won was amazing. I think everybody was amazing. I want to make sure I clear the room. Let me stop this.